This 4-year-old beggar girl sees a millionaire forced to tie babies to the train tracks. But she saw everything and does something that shocked everyone. Watch until the end. Comment, telling me what you thought of this story with a rating from 0 to 10. I really want to know if you liked my story and subscribe to my channel to support my work. I'm counting on your help. The humid August air hung heavy over Oakhaven as Caleb Montgomery crossed the abandoned tracks of the old railway station, carrying 2 small, squirming bundles in his arms. The twins, Benjamin and Theo, were only 3 weeks old, and their muffled cries echoed through the empty space where trains once hauled lumber to Pittsburgh. The 52-year-old businessman was sweating through his wrinkled dress shirt, his graying hair stuck to his forehead as he glanced nervously from side to side. The Montgomery furniture factory was facing severe financial hardship, and Caleb had arranged this secret meeting in the hope of settling a debt that had tormented him for years. His wife, Evelyn, knew nothing of the meeting. She was at home, lost in another of the depressive episodes that had become constant after the loss of little Isabel 3 years ago. Grief had turned his wife into a shadow of her former self, and now, with 2 babies to care for, Caleb felt completely overwhelmed. The heavy footsteps approached from behind before he could turn. Walter Croft emerged from the shadows between the rusted train cars, holding a corroded piece of iron in his trembling hands. At 48, the thin man sported several days' worth of stubble and dirty clothes that betrayed a lack of basic care. His bloodshot eyes fixed first on the babies, then on Caleb's pale face. "Thought you wouldn't show," Walter said in a hoarse voice, slowly approaching. $2 million, Caleb. That's what you've owed me since you destroyed our partnership. "I've explained it to you 1,000 times. It wasn't my fault," Caleb replied, clutching his sons tighter to his chest. "The lumber company's bankruptcy happened because of the recession. There was no fraud." Walter laughed bitterly, swinging the rusty iron bar in the air. "You took advantage of my absence when my mother was in the hospital. You sold off the equipment, took the money, and left me with the debts. Now you have this thriving factory, and I'm living like a beggar." The babies began to cry louder, sensing the tension in the air. Caleb took a few steps back, but realized he was trapped between Walter and the abandoned tracks. The sun was beginning to set, painting the sky orange and creating long shadows that danced among the station's wreckage. "I didn't bring any money," Caleb admitted, his voice trembling. "I can't pay you that amount right now. The factory is barely surviving." Walter's eyes burned with rage. He pointed the iron bar toward the twins. "Then your sons will pay for what you did. Tie them to the tracks. You're insane. They're just babies." "Tie them!" Walter screamed, advancing with his makeshift weapon. "I want you to feel the same desperation I felt when I lost everything because of you." Caleb looked around desperately, searching for an escape. In the distance, the whistle of a freight train echoed through the warm afternoon. The line was still occasionally used for transporting goods. His hands shook as he held his sons, trying to buy time. "Please, Walter," he pleaded. "We can talk. I can give you a partnership in the new factory. We can work together again." "Liar, you've always been a liar." Walter moved closer. The iron bar now aimed directly at Caleb's chest. "Either you tie those boys to the tracks, or I'll smash your head in right here." The sound of the train grew closer, making the ground vibrate slightly under their feet. Caleb knew he had no choice. Walter was completely unhinged, lost in years of resentment and a thirst for revenge. With tears streaming down his face, he knelt and began to remove the laces from his own shoes, his hands shaking violently. It was at that moment that a small figure came running out from under the nearby bridge. A girl, seemingly 4 years old, dirty and dressed in rags, with tangled hair covering part of her face. She ran directly toward Walter, her bare feet making noise against the rotten wooden ties. Before either man could react, the child threw herself against Walter's legs with all the force her small body could muster. The man, caught completely by surprise, stumbled backward and hit his head on a large stone that was part of the old station platform. The sound of the impact echoed through the area as Walter collapsed, unconscious. Caleb remained paralyzed for a few seconds, still kneeling with the shoelaces in his hands, watching the surreal scene. The girl turned to him, and her large, dark eyes stared at him with an intensity that was unsettling for someone so small. She didn't say a word, just pointed in the opposite direction from the approaching train. The whistle blew again, closer now. Caleb quickly stood up, grabbing the babies and looking at the unconscious Walter. Blood was trickling from his head, but he was still breathing. The girl tugged on Caleb's pants, silently insisting that he follow her. With few options, Caleb ran after the child, who led him along a path through the bushes until they reached a dirt road. Only then did he stop to catch his breath and get a better look at his little savior. The girl had strange scars scattered across her arms and legs, marks that looked old but told a story of suffering no child should ever know. "What's your name?" Caleb asked, still panting. "Where are your parents?" The girl stared at him but didn't answer. She simply pointed to herself and then to him, as if to say they were now connected in some way. Caleb tried a few more questions, but realized the child wouldn't speak, or couldn't. In the distance, the train finally passed by the abandoned station, its deafening noise echoing through the afternoon. Caleb looked at the twins in his arms, then at the mysterious girl who had saved their lives. A decision formed in his mind. Even without fully understanding its implications, the Montgomery house was on a quiet street in the center of Oakhaven, a two-story house painted a pale yellow that reflected the family's prosperity before their recent troubles. Caleb pulled the car into the garage, the twins finally asleep after the scare at the station, while the mysterious girl sat silently in the back seat, observing everything with those dark, piercing eyes. Evelyn was in the kitchen when she heard them enter, mechanically stirring a pot of soup she would probably forget to season. At 45, she still had the natural beauty that had won Caleb over 2 decades ago. But her brown hair was always messy lately, and her baggy clothes hid a body that had lost too much weight since Isabel's death. "You're home early," she said without turning, her voice emotionless. "Did the boys cry much?" "Evelyn," Caleb began, hesitant, "I need to tell you something. Something happened today." She turned slowly, and her gaze went straight to the girl hiding behind Caleb's legs. Evelyn's face contorted into an expression of confusion and irritation. "Who is this child? Why is she in our house?" "It's a long story," Caleb said, placing the babies in their portable crib. "She helped me today. She saved our family from a very dangerous situation." "Saved? Caleb, what situation? You went out to deal with factory business." The girl remained silent, but her eyes moved around the kitchen as if cataloging every detail. Her gaze stopped when she saw a photo on the refrigerator. Isabel smiling at a playground just a few months before the accident that took her from them. "She doesn't speak," Caleb explained. "At least not yet. She must be about 4. She's clearly been abandoned. Look at the state of her clothes." Evelyn approached the girl, who instinctively recoiled. The scars were more visible now under the kitchen light, circular marks on her arms, old scratches on her legs, signs of tiny burns on her hands. "My God," Evelyn whispered, her irritation turning to concern. "What did they do to you, little one?" The girl didn't answer, but something in her eyes changed when Evelyn knelt down to her level. It was as if she recognized something familiar in the woman's sadness. "We can't just bring a strange child home," Evelyn said, standing up. "We have to notify the authorities, look for her family." "What family?" "Look at her, Evelyn. She's clearly abandoned, probably been living on the streets for weeks or months, and she saved me today in a way you wouldn't believe." Just then, William came running down the stairs, his backpack on. The 16-year-old was the family's pride, always among the top students at his school, planning to apply for engineering school the following year. His dark hair was perfectly combed, and his pristine school uniform reflected the discipline that had always characterized him. "Dad, I need money for the science project," he began, but stopped mid-sentence when he saw the girl. "Who's she?" "A temporary situation," Caleb answered quickly. "She'll stay with us for a few days until we figure out what to do." William looked at the girl with curiosity, but also with a discomfort he couldn't explain. There was something about her that made him uneasy, a presence that seemed larger than her small size suggested. The girl, in turn, fixed her gaze on William in an intense and unsettling way. It was as if she could see right through him, no secrets he didn't even know he kept. "She doesn't talk?" William asked. "Not yet," Caleb said. "Probably trauma. Kids who've been through difficult situations sometimes get like this." During dinner, the girl sat at the table but barely touched her food. Instead, she watched each family member with meticulous attention, as if studying their expressions, their gestures, their interactions. When Evelyn began to cry silently, something that had become routine during meals, the girl reached out her tiny hand and touched her arm. The touch was gentle, but Evelyn felt as if an electric current passed through her body. For a moment, the constant pain she carried in her chest since losing Isabel lessened, replaced by something she hadn't felt in a long time: hope. "She has something special about her," Evelyn murmured, looking into the girl's eyes. "I can't explain it, but she does." That night, they prepared a mattress in the guest room for the girl, but she refused to go in alone. Instead, she stood at the door, watching the family get ready for bed. Caleb tried to convince her several times, but she simply shook her head and sat down on the floor in the hallway. "Let her stay there for tonight," Evelyn said. "We'll figure it out tomorrow." During the night, William woke up from a strange nightmare. He dreamed he was lost in a dark forest and someone was calling his name. But when he turned to see who it was, he found only shadows. When he got up for a drink of water, he saw the girl still sitting in the hallway, wide awake, as if she were standing guard. Their eyes met in the dark, and William felt a shiver run down his spine. There was something in her expression that made him feel as if she knew exactly what he had dreamed. The next morning, Evelyn found the girl in the kitchen, sitting on the floor next to the twins' crib. Benjamin and Theo, who usually cried a lot during the night, had slept through the entire night for the first time since they were born. "How did you do that?" Evelyn asked, impressed. The girl didn't answer with words, but picked up a pencil from the table and began to draw on a paper napkin. The drawing was surprisingly detailed for a 4-year-old. It showed 2 small figures in cribs, surrounded by gentle lines that seemed to represent protection. "Did you watch over them all night?" Evelyn insisted. The girl nodded, then pointed to Evelyn and made a gesture with her hands, as if she were rocking a baby. It was as if she knew Evelyn needed to rest, that the exhausted mother needed a full night's sleep. Caleb came down for breakfast and found his wife looking at the girl with an expression he hadn't seen in years. Genuine tenderness mixed with something that seemed to be an awakening from grief. "She is special," Evelyn said again. "I don't know how to explain it, but since she arrived, I feel like Isabel sent her to us." "Evelyn, we can't get confused," Caleb warned gently. "She's not our daughter." "But she could be," she replied, picking the girl up for the first time. "Look how perfectly she fits in my arms." The girl snuggled against Evelyn, closing her eyes for the first time since she had arrived at the house. It was as if she had finally found the place where she belonged, where she could let her guard down and just be a little child who needed care. 3 weeks had passed since the mysterious girl's arrival, and the Montgomery family's routine had changed in ways no one had expected. Evelyn had decided to give the child a name, Hope, because, as she put it, the girl had brought hope back into their desolate home. The girl accepted the name with a silent nod, as if she had finally found an identity that fit her. Hope displayed an extraordinary intelligence that left everyone perplexed. Although she still didn't speak, she managed to communicate through complex drawings that went far beyond what would be expected of a 4-year-old. Her illustrations were detailed and precise, showing places in Oak Haven she had supposedly never visited, people it should have been impossible for her to know. On a warm afternoon in September, while Evelyn was folding laundry in the living room, Hope picked up some colored pencils that William had left on his study table and began to draw on a large sheet of paper. What emerged from under her small fingers made Evelyn stop breathing for a moment. The drawing showed the Petersons' house, a family who lived 3 blocks away, with precise details: the faded green gate, the broken window in the back room, even the caramel-colored dog that was tied up in the yard. But what impressed Evelyn the most was a specific detail. Hope had drawn Mr. Peterson with an expression of pain, clutching his chest, while a female figure cried beside him. "How do you know this house?" Evelyn asked, kneeling beside Hope. The girl pointed to the drawing, then to the living room window, as if to say she could see through walls and distances. Her large, dark eyes seemed to carry a knowledge that went beyond her age. 2 hours later, an ambulance drove down the street toward the Petersons' house. Mrs. Carmen, the next-door neighbor, appeared at the Montgomerys' door with a worried face. "Evelyn, did you hear? Mr. Peterson had a heart attack. His wife found him collapsed in the kitchen. They just took him to the hospital." Evelyn looked at Hope, who continued drawing as if nothing had happened, but a chill ran down her spine. It was impossible for a child to know something before it happened, but that drawing had been made hours before the heart attack. The following week, a similar incident occurred. Hope drew Mr. Jenkins' bakery on fire, with flames coming out of the windows and people running in the street. Evelyn tried to ignore it, but 3 days later, a short circuit in the bakery's oven caused a small fire that burned part of the establishment. "This can't be a coincidence," Caleb muttered when Evelyn told him about the drawings. "Twice in a row." "Ah, what are you implying? That she has some kind of gift?" Evelyn asked, although deep down she already suspected the answer. "I don't know what to think," Caleb admitted. "But since she got here, strange things have been happening." William, who was listening to the conversation from the top of the stairs, felt a growing unease in his chest. His nightmares had become more frequent and vivid since Hope's arrival. Every night he dreamed of distressing situations. He was lost in dark places. People he loved disappeared, or he himself transformed into someone he didn't recognize. His grades at school, which had always been excellent, began to decline drastically. His math teacher even called him after class to ask if everything was okay at home. "William has always been our best student," Mr. Anderson told Caleb during a meeting at the school. "But in the last few weeks, he seems distracted, irritable. He even fell asleep during my class, which has never happened before." "It's been a difficult time at home," Caleb explained, without going into detail about Hope. "We have newborn twins. The routine has changed a lot." But Caleb knew there was more to it. William had started to avoid being in the same room as Hope, always making excuses to leave when she appeared. And when he was forced to interact with the girl, he became visibly uncomfortable, as if she could see his innermost thoughts. One night, William woke up from another nightmare and went down to the kitchen for water. He found Hope sitting at the table, drawing by the light of a candle she had lit herself. The drawing showed a young man, clearly him, running down a dark road, with tears on his face and a backpack on. "Why do you draw these things?" William asked, his voice trembling with contained anger. Hope looked up at him, and for a moment, William felt as if she could see directly into his soul. The girl didn't answer, but pointed to the drawing and then to him, as if showing him something that was yet to happen. "Stop it!" William exploded, tearing the paper. "Stop drawing about us! Stop! Stop knowing things!" The noise woke Evelyn, who rushed down to the kitchen. She found William trembling with rage, pieces of paper scattered on the floor, and Hope looking at him with a deep expression of sadness. "What happened here?" Evelyn asked. "She was drawing about me," William shouted. "She's always drawing bad things, as if she knows what's going to happen to everyone." "William, she's just a child." "No, Mom, there's something wrong with her. Since she got here, everything's changed. I can't sleep, I can't concentrate at school. It's like she brings bad luck to our house." Hope got up from her chair and approached William slowly. She reached out her tiny hand to touch his arm, but he recoiled as if he had been shocked. "Don't touch me!" he yelled, running up the stairs. The sound of his bedroom door slamming echoed through the quiet house. Evelyn knelt beside Hope, who had begun to gather the torn pieces of the drawing. Tears streamed silently down her small face. "He didn't mean it," Evelyn comforted. "William is just confused, going through a difficult phase." But Hope shook her head sadly and pointed to the pieces of paper. Even torn, you could still see part of the figure of the boy running down the dark road. And Evelyn felt a cold knot in her stomach when she realized that, on the original drawing, there had been a date scribbled in the corner, May 15th, just 2 weeks away. The next morning, Hope exhibited behavior that alarmed the whole family. She had woken up earlier than everyone else and was standing on the front porch, staring intently at the street, as if expecting someone. When Caleb tried to call her for breakfast, she simply shook her head and continued her silent vigil. "How long has she been like this?" Evelyn asked. "Since I got up at 5 in the morning," Caleb replied. "She hasn't moved an inch." Around 10 o'clock, an unfamiliar car pulled up in front of the house. A man in a dark suit got out and looked toward the porch where Hope was posted. The girl waved at him as if he were an old acquaintance, but when the man waved back and started to approach, she ran into the house and hid behind Evelyn. The man knocked on the door and identified himself as a private investigator. "Looking for information about missing children in the area," Caleb answered, feeling his heart race. "We're investigating the disappearance of several children in recent months," the man explained. "A family in Charleston reported that their 4-year-old daughter disappeared 6 weeks ago. The description matches a girl who may be living on the streets here in Oak Haven." While the investigator spoke, Hope remained hidden, but her eyes were fixed on him with an expression of pure terror that Evelyn had never seen before. Caleb felt sweat run down his back as he watched the investigator examine a worn-out photo he had taken from his inner jacket pocket. The image showed a blonde girl with curly hair, smiling at the camera, completely different from Hope, who had dark, straight hair. "As you can see," Caleb said, trying to keep his voice calm, "the girl who is with us doesn't match the description. Hope has dark hair and very different features." The investigator, who had introduced himself as Mark Stanton, studied Hope for a few seconds. The girl remained clinging to Evelyn's skirt, her small face partially hidden, but her watchful eyes didn't miss a single move the man made. "I understand," Mark said finally, putting the photo away. "But I have to ask, do you have any documents for the girl, birth certificate, medical records?" "She appeared on our property a few weeks ago," Evelyn explained quickly. "Clearly abandoned, living on the street. We were taking care of her temporarily while we decided how to proceed." "And have you contacted social services?" Caleb and Evelyn exchanged quick glances. This was exactly the question they had feared, because an honest answer would put them in a complicated legal situation. "We were planning to do that soon," Caleb lied. We wanted to first make sure she was healthy and felt safe. Mark made some notes in a small notebook. I understand your intentions, but legally, abandoned children must be reported to the authorities immediately. I'll have to include this information in my report. After the investigator left, the family sat in tense silence in the living room. Hope had run to her room and locked herself in, refusing to come out even when Evelyn knocked on the door repeatedly. "We're going to have problems," Caleb muttered. "If social services come here, and they won't take her," Evelyn interrupted with determination. "Hope belongs to this family now. She chose to stay with us." "Evelyn, be realistic. We have no legal rights over her. If a family shows up looking for her, or if they decide an orphanage is better, then we'll make it legal," she said firmly. "We'll start the adoption process." William, who had arrived home from school in the middle of the conversation, dropped his backpack heavily on the floor. "Adoption? Are you serious?" "Why not?" Evelyn retorted. "She's already part of our family." "Because there's something wrong with her," William exploded. "Don't you see? Since she got here, only bad things have happened. My grades have plummeted, I can't sleep. And she keeps drawing things that happen before they happen." "Coincidences," Evelyn said, but her voice didn't sound very convinced. "Coincidences? And that investigator showing up today? What if he comes back with more questions? What if he finds out Dad was lying about finding her on our property?" Caleb's stomach clenched. William didn't know about the events at the railway station, the confrontation with Walter, how Hope had really come into their lives. But the boy was right about one thing. They were living a lie that could crumble at any moment. That night, Hope finally came out of her room, but she seemed different. Her movements were more cautious, her eyes more alert, as if she knew something had changed. During dinner, she barely touched her food, preferring to watch each family member with unsettling attention. After the meal, she picked up her colored pencils and started a new drawing. This time, the image that emerged was even more detailed than the previous ones. It showed the Montgomery house itself, but with a crucial difference. There were official cars parked out front, uniformed people at the door, and a small figure being led away while a woman cried on the porch. Evelyn saw the drawing when she went to say goodnight to Hope, and she felt as if she had been punched in the stomach. "When is this going to happen?" she asked, though she knew Hope wouldn't answer with words. The girl pointed to the calendar on the wall of the room and gestured with her little fingers, indicating about a week in the future. In the following days, the tension in the house grew exponentially. William came home on Tuesday with a school warning for fighting with a classmate, something completely out of character for him, who had always been a peaceful and studious boy. "What happened?" Caleb asked when he saw the school notice. "He said I looked like I hadn't slept in days," William explained, avoiding his father's gaze, "and that I seemed to always be scared. I lost my temper." "Son, you need to tell me what's going on. These nightmares, this change in your behavior." William looked toward the living room where Hope was sitting on the floor, quietly playing with wooden blocks Evelyn had bought for her. "It's her," he whispered. "I can't explain it, but since she got here, it's like I know something bad is going to happen. Every day I wake up with this feeling in my chest, like I'm being watched by something invisible." Caleb followed his son's gaze and saw Hope, who had stopped playing and was looking directly at them, as if she could hear the whispered conversation in the other room. On Thursday, the family's fears were partially realized. Mark Stanton returned, but this time accompanied by a social worker, a serious middle-aged woman who identified herself as Dr. Patricia Lewis. "Mr. Montgomery," she said after the introductions, "we received Investigator Stanton's report, and we need to discuss the situation of the girl under your care." Hope, who was in the backyard playing when they arrived, ran into the house and hid behind the armchair in the living room. from where she could watch the visitors without being easily seen. "I understand you acted with good intentions," Dr. Lewis continued, "but there is a legal protocol to be followed in these cases. The child needs to undergo medical exams, a psychological evaluation, and be registered in the system for missing minors." "Of course," Caleb said, "we're willing to cooperate with whatever is necessary." "Excellent. I'll need to take the girl today for an initial assessment at the Social Services Department. Depending on the results, she may return while we process the paperwork for her temporary placement here." "Take her today?" Evelyn asked, her voice rising an octave. "But she's barely adjusted. She's afraid of strangers. She doesn't speak yet." "I understand your concern, ma'am, but it's standard procedure. It will only be for a few hours." Behind the armchair, Hope had curled up into a small ball, her arms wrapped around her knees. Her large eyes were fixed on the drawing she had made days ago, as if she were seeing her own prophecy come true. Evelyn stood up abruptly. "No, you're not taking her. Mrs. Montgomery, I understand you've grown attached to the child, but—" "She saved me," Evelyn interrupted, surprising even Caleb. When we lost our Isabel, I wanted to give up on everything. Hope brought back my will to live. If you take her now, you'll traumatize her even more." "May I speak with the girl?" Dr. Lewis asked gently. Hope slowly came out from behind the armchair, but instead of approaching the social worker, she ran to Evelyn and clung to her legs with desperate force. "Hope," Dr. Lewis said, crouching down, "my name is Patricia. I'm going to take you to a place where other nice people will talk with you, okay?" The girl shook her head violently and clung even tighter to Evelyn. Then, to everyone's surprise, she opened her mouth and said her first word since arriving at the Montgomery house: "No." The silence that followed Hope's first word was deafening. Dr. Lewis slowly straightened up, clearly surprised, while Evelyn hugged the girl to her with a mixture of protection and triumph. "She spoke," Evelyn whispered, tears streaming down her face. "Hope, you spoke." The girl looked up at Evelyn, then looked directly at Dr. Lewis and repeated more firmly, "Not going." "Hope," the social worker tried in a gentle voice, "you need to understand that this is for your own good. We want to make sure you're safe and healthy." "I'm safe," Hope replied, her voice small but surprisingly clear. "Here with my family." Caleb felt a lump in his throat. Hearing Hope call them her family for the first time struck an emotional chord he hadn't expected. He looked at Mark Stanton, who was watching the scene with growing interest. "Investigator Stanton," Caleb said, "the girl clearly feels safe here. Wouldn't it be more traumatic to force her to go against her will?" Mark exchanged a look with Dr. Lewis. "She can stay for a few more days," the social worker finally decided, "but I will need to conduct a full assessment of the home environment, and the girl will have to undergo medical exams within a week at most." After the visitors left, the family gathered in the living room, still processing what had happened. Hope remained in Evelyn's lap, but now seemed more relaxed, as if she had won an important battle. "Why did you never speak before?" Evelyn asked softly. Hope was quiet for a moment, choosing her words. "I was scared," she said finally. "When I talk, bad people find me." "What bad people?" Caleb insisted, sitting on the sofa beside them. "People who hurt," Hope replied, unconsciously touching the scars on her arms. "Before you, they always hurt me when I spoke." Evelyn's heart broke. "No one will hurt you here, my little one. This is your home now." William, who had remained silent in the corner of the room, approached hesitantly. "Hope," he said, "I'm sorry for yelling at you the other day. I was confused." Hope looked at him with those piercing eyes, and William felt as though she could see through all his defenses. "You have nightmares," she said simply. "How do you know?" I have them too, but mine are about things that are going to happen. Yours are about things you're afraid will happen." "That doesn't make sense," William muttered. "Yes, it does," Hope said, getting off Evelyn's lap and walking over to him. "You're afraid of not being good enough, afraid of disappointing your family. That's why you have dreams where you're always running from something." William took a step back, disturbed by the accuracy of the girl's words. "How can you know that?" "Because I'm like you," Hope answered. "Except instead of being afraid of the future, I see it." That night, for the first time since her arrival, Hope ate dinner normally with the family, participating in the conversation with simple but precise words. It was as if speaking had broken a barrier that had kept her separate from them. "Can I ask you a question?" Caleb said during dessert. "How can you draw things before they happen?" Hope played with her ice cream spoon for a few seconds. "I don't know how to explain it right. It's like sometimes I daydream, and I see things that haven't happened yet. My real mum used to say I had a gift, but the people who took care of me later thought it was a bad thing." "Your real mum?" Evelyn asked gently. "Do you remember her?" "A little. She had hair like yours, and she smelled like flowers, but she got very sick and had to go away. The people who came after, they didn't like it when I knew things they hadn't told me. And that's why you stopped talking. I stopped talking to people I didn't trust. But you're different. You don't get angry when I know things." Caleb and Evelyn exchanged meaningful looks. It was clear that Hope had been through traumatic situations with previous caregivers, people who likely didn't understand or feared her unusual abilities. "Hope," Evelyn said, "can you tell us about that drawing, the one that showed people taking you away?" The girl's face darkened. "It can still happen. I see things that can happen, not things that will happen for sure. Sometimes, when people know about what I see, they can change it." "So you drew it to warn us?" To give you a chance to protect me," Hope confirmed. During the following week, life in the Montgomery house gained a new dynamic. Hope began to open up more about her visions, explaining that they were like waking dreams she had, especially when she was worried about someone. "I see Mr. Jenkins from the bakery," she said one morning, making a new drawing. "He's sad because his wife is sick, but he doesn't know it yet." "What do you mean he doesn't know yet?" Caleb asked. "The sickness is just starting now, inside her. In a few days she'll feel stomach pains and they'll find out." "And can we do anything?" Hope nodded. "We can tell him to take her to the doctor before the pain starts. Sometimes, when people know beforehand, they can help faster." And so Caleb found himself in a strange situation, knocking on the bakery door and gently suggesting to Mr. Jenkins that it might be a good idea for his wife to get some medical tests, just to make sure everything was okay. The baker initially laughed at the suggestion, but agreed to please Caleb, who was a good customer. 2 days later, the tests revealed a tumor in its early stages, completely treatable if discovered early. "How did you know?" Mr. Jenkins asked when Caleb returned to the bakery. "The doctors said if we had waited a few more weeks." Caleb didn't know how to explain, so he simply said it was a gut feeling. But Hope's visions weren't always about things that could be avoided. One afternoon, she drew the old town bridge with a large crack and people falling into the water. "When is this going to happen?" Evelyn asked, worried. "Soon," Hope said. "When it rains a lot, the bridge can't take it anymore." Caleb tried to warn the town council but was met with skepticism. How could he explain that a 4-year-old child had predicted a structural problem? A week later, a strong storm hit Oakhaven. The rain lasted for 3 consecutive days, and in the early morning of the 4th day, the old bridge partially collapsed. Fortunately, it happened in the middle of the night when there were no pedestrians crossing. But 3 cars parked nearby were swept into the creek. "She really sees the future," Caleb murmured to Evelyn that night. "They're not coincidences." And now, What do we do with this information? We protect her, Evelyn replied with determination, and we try to use her gift to help people, not to scare them. But not everyone in town was ready to accept Hope's abilities positively. Rumors began to spread about the strange girl living with the Montgomerys, the child who knew things she shouldn't know. Brenda, a gossipy neighbor, started spreading stories about negative energy and the evil eye. Some mothers forbade their children from playing near the Montgomery house, fearing Hope would bring bad luck to their families. The situation worsened when Hope drew a picture showing Brenda's teenage son, Junior, in a motorcycle accident. The drawing was detailed. It showed the motorcycle skidding on a specific curve on the road, leading to the next district, with Junior lying on the pavement. "She's trying to curse my son," Brenda screamed when she heard about the drawing. "That girl is the devil's work." The accusation spread quickly through the small town, and soon a group of superstitious people formed, demanding that the Montgomery family send Hope away. The neighborhood's hostility reached its peak on a Saturday morning when a group of about 15 people gathered in front of the Montgomery house. Brenda led the impromptu protest, holding a rosary and speaking loudly about protecting the community from evil influences. Caleb went out to talk to the group, trying to stay calm, even as he felt anger boiling in his veins. Evelyn kept Hope inside, but the girl could see everything from the living room window, her small face pressed against the glass. "Folks, let's calm down," Caleb said, raising his hands in a peaceful gesture. "Hope is just a child who's been through difficult situations." "A child doesn't know the things she knows," Brenda retorted. "A normal child doesn't draw disasters before they happen. What if she's trying to warn you? What if it's a gift to help people?" Caleb suggested. "A gift?" laughed Mr. Morris, the town blacksmith. "That's not a gift, it's a curse. My friend's cousin told me the girl drew the bakery fire before it happened. Who does that?" "Someone who cares about others," Caleb defended. Because of her warning, Mr. Jenkins found out about his wife's illness in time to treat it. "Coincidence," Brenda shouted, "and now she's threatening my Junior. She drew him in an accident like it was a sentence." At that moment, Junior arrived on his motorcycle, braking sharply, when he saw the crowd in front of the neighboring house. The 17-year-old got off his bike and approached his mother, confused. "What's going on here, Mom?" "That crazy girl from that house drew you having an accident," Brenda explained, pointing to the window where Hope was watching. "She's trying to curse you." Junior looked at the window and saw Hope. For a moment, their eyes met through the glass, and the boy felt a strange shiver run down his spine. There was something in the girl's eyes that wasn't malevolent, but rather concerned. "Mom, she's just a little kid," Junior said. "What harm can she do?" "Don't underestimate these things, son. I've seen people lose everything because of the evil eye." The argument was interrupted by the arrival of a car known in town. The blue Volkswagen of Father Anthony, the parish priest of Oak Haven's main church. The 60-year-old priest was respected by all and known for his wisdom and balance. "What's happening here?" Father Anthony asked, getting out of his car and observing the agitated group. Brenda immediately went to him, explaining about Hope's demonic visions and asking him to intervene to protect the community. The priest listened in silence, occasionally asking specific questions. "And have you seen these visions come true?" he asked. "Father, the girl drew the bakery fire 2 days before it happened," confirmed Mr. Morris, "and the bridge collapsed too. And she saved Mr. Jenkins' wife's life," Caleb added quickly. "Because of her warning, they found a tumor in its early stages." Father Anthony remained thoughtful for a few moments. "I would like to speak with the child," he said finally. "Father, with all due respect, but it's not safe," Brenda protested. "She could even influence you." "Brenda, if there is something supernatural happening here, it is my pastoral duty to investigate. And if there isn't, then we are persecuting an innocent child. Caleb led the priest into the house, where Evelyn waited nervously in the living room with Hope in her lap. The girl watched the priest with curiosity, but without the fear she had shown with other visitors. "Hello, Hope," Father Anthony said gently, sitting in a nearby chair. "My name is Anthony. I'm the priest here in town." "I know," Hope replied simply. "You take care of people when they're sad." "That's true, and I was told you can see things that haven't happened yet." Hope nodded. "Sometimes. When I worry a lot about someone, I see bad things that could happen to them." "And you draw these visions to warn people?" "To try to help. But not everyone likes it when I warn them." Father Anthony studied the girl's sincere face. "Hope, can you show me one of these drawings?" The girl got off Evelyn's lap and went to get her box of colored pencils. She sat on the floor and began to draw, her concentration total. What emerged was a drawing of the church itself, but with a difference. The roof was partially destroyed, and people were running out. "When is this going to happen?" the priest asked, intrigued. "During the summer festival," Hope said. "It's going to rain very hard and the old roof won't hold, but no one will get hurt if everyone leaves quickly when the leak starts." "Where will the leak start?" Hope pointed to a specific area of the drawing near the side altar. "There, and it will make a strange noise before it falls." Father Anthony was silent for a long moment, studying the drawing. The parish's summer festival was scheduled for 2 weeks from then, and he knew that the church roof was indeed in poor condition. He had requested quotes for repairs, but had not yet secured the necessary funds. "Hope, are you afraid of these visions?" he asked. "Sometimes, especially when I see bad things and can't do anything to help. And when you warn people, how do you feel?" "Better, like I did the right thing even when they get mad at me." Father Anthony stood up and addressed the parents. "May I speak with you in private?" In the backyard, away from Hope, the priest was direct. "There is nothing evil in this child. On the contrary, she seems genuinely concerned with helping people." "So, you believe her visions?" Evelyn asked. "I believe there are things in this world we can't fully explain. And if God has granted this girl the ability to help others, who are we to question it? And the neighborhood, how will we deal with the hostility?" "Leave that to me," the priest said. "I will talk to everyone about Christian compassion and about not judging what they don't understand." When Father Anthony left the house and addressed the group still waiting in the street, his presence had an immediate calming effect. "Folks," he said with pastoral authority, "I have spoken with the girl and found nothing to justify our concern. She is a child who has been through trauma and has developed a special sensitivity to perceive signs around her." "But Father, the things she knows," Brenda began. "They are warnings that can save lives, as has already happened with Jenkins' wife. Instead of fearing this child, we should be thankful to have someone who cares about us." The crowd began to disperse slowly, but Brenda was not satisfied. "And my son's drawing, how do you explain that?" At that moment, Hope appeared at the door of the house, holding a sheet of paper. She walked slowly to Junior, who was still standing next to his motorcycle. "I'm not going to hurt you," she said in her small voice. "I just want to help you." She handed him the paper. It was a new drawing, showing the same curve in the road, but this time with changes, warning signs, a repaired section of the road, and Junior passing safely through the curve. "If you go slower on that curve," Hope said, "and if the town fixes the potholes, nothing bad will happen." Junior looked at the drawing, then at the girl. "How do you know about that curve?" "Because you always go too fast there. I hear the sound of your motorcycle every night when you come back from your girlfriend's house." The boy blushed, realizing he did have a habit of speeding on that specific curve, especially at night when he was anxious to get home. You were trying to help me, not curse me." Hope nodded. "I always try to help. It's just that not everyone understands." The church's summer festival was scheduled for the end of June, and the whole town was buzzing with preparations. Father Anthony had secretly had the church roof inspected after his conversation with Hope, and the technicians confirmed that several beams were compromised by moisture and termites. "We don't have the funds for a full repair before the festival," he told Caleb in a private conversation, "but I'm going to install some temporary supports in the area the girl indicated, just as a precaution." Caleb nodded, impressed by the seriousness the priest was giving to Hope's visions. "Do you really believe she can predict the future?" "I believe that God works through mysterious instruments," Father Anthony replied diplomatically, "and I prefer to be safe than sorry." Meanwhile, in the Montgomery house, the family dynamic continued to change. Hope had become more communicative, telling small stories about her life before she found the family. Her memories were fragmented, but revealed a disturbing pattern of neglect and abuse. "I lived in a house where there were lots of kids," she told Evelyn one night. While Evelyn combed her hair, "The lady who took care of us got mad when I told her about my dreams. She said I was lying to get attention." "And what happened in your dreams?" Evelyn asked gently. "I would see when a kid was going to get sick or when someone was going to hurt us. I tried to warn them, but nobody believed me. Then the things would happen anyway, and the lady would get even madder." "Why did she get mad?" "Because she was afraid of me," Hope said with a sadness that seemed too big for a 4-year-old. "People are always afraid when you know things they don't know." Evelyn's heart ached. "But we're not afraid of you, my dear. We know you just want to help." "I know. That's why I like you guys so much." William had gradually overcome his initial aversion to Hope, especially after realizing that her visions about him were actually attempts to help him deal with his anxieties. His nightmares decreased significantly, and his grades at school started to improve again. "It's weird," he confided to his father one afternoon. "It's like she can see the things that worry me and helps me understand they're not as scary as I thought." "How so?" "Like, she once drew me studying at a university far from home. In the drawing I was happy, but also a little sad to be away from the family. Then I realized that my fear of growing up and leaving home was normal, that I don't need to be ashamed of it." Caleb smiled, impressed by his son's maturity and the subtle way Hope had of helping people understand themselves. But not everything was peaceful at the Montgomery house. The furniture factory was still facing financial difficulties, and Caleb couldn't stop thinking about Walter, who had disappeared since the incident at the train station. He didn't know if the man had survived the blow to the head, if he had sought medical help, or if he was planning some kind of revenge. On a rainy Tuesday, his worries intensified when Hope made a disturbing drawing. It showed a thin, bearded man watching their house from a distance, hidden behind trees. In the drawing, the man was holding something in his hands that looked like a piece of paper. "Who is that man?" Caleb asked, trying to keep his voice calm. "Someone you know," Hope replied. "Someone who is very angry and has a lot of pain in his heart. He thinks you did something bad to him." "And when will he show up?" "Soon. Maybe tonight. Maybe tomorrow. He's waiting for the right moment." Caleb felt a cold knot in his stomach. It was definitely Walter. The man had survived and was probably planning another confrontation. "Hope," Caleb said, kneeling in front of her, "could this man try to hurt us?" The girl was quiet for a moment, her eyes becoming distant as they always did when she had a vision. "He wants to hurt you," she said finally, "but he won't be able to, because this time you'll be prepared." "Prepared how?" You're going to talk to him first. You're going to find out he's not evil, just in a lot of pain, and you'll understand that you two need to help each other instead of hurting each other. That night, Caleb barely slept. He got up several times to check that all the doors and windows were locked, and kept a phone nearby to call the police if necessary. Around 2 in the morning, Hope appeared in her parents' room, whispering, "He's here." Caleb got up immediately and looked out the window. Outside, in the front yard, he could make out the silhouette of a man standing under the maple tree. "Evelyn, wake up," he whispered. "Call the police." "No," Hope said, holding his arm. "First, you need to talk to him. He didn't come here to fight this time." Caleb hesitated, but something in the certainty of Hope's voice made him believe her. He went down the stairs silently and opened the front door, staying on the threshold. "Walter," he called out in a low voice, "I know you're out there." The figure stepped out from behind the tree slowly. Walter looked visibly different, thinner, with a bandage on his head, clean but worn clothes. In his hands, he held a sheet of paper. "Caleb," he said, his voice hoarse, "I need to talk to you. If you came here to threaten me again—" "I didn't come for that," Walter interrupted, approaching cautiously. "I came to return this to you." He held out the paper. It was an official document, yellowed with age, a partnership dissolution agreement, dated 5 years ago, with Walter's signature authorizing the sale of the lumber company's equipment. "Where did you find this?" Caleb asked, confused. "At my house. It was stored in a box my mother left when she died. I had completely forgotten I'd signed it." Caleb examined the document in the porch light. It was authentic, and it clearly showed that Walter had agreed to the dissolution of the partnership and the sale of the assets. "Walter, what does this mean?" The man sat heavily on the porch steps, looking exhausted. "It means I spent 5 years blaming you for something I myself authorized. My mother was dying of cancer. I was desperate for money to cover her treatment. You offered me a way out, buying my share of the lumber company, and I accepted. But why didn't you remember? Depression, alcohol, despair," Walter admitted. "After my mother died anyway, I went into a downward spiral. I blocked everything from my memory, including the fact that you had helped me when I needed it." Caleb sat next to him, processing the information. "And what made you remember now?" "The blow to the head. I spent 3 days in the hospital, and when I woke up, some memories came back. I went home to look for documents to prove you had cheated me, but I found this instead." They were silent for a few minutes, the weight of 5 years of misunderstanding hanging between them. "Walter, do you have a place to stay? How are you living?" "In a cheap boarding house. I do odd jobs when I can. I have nothing left, Caleb. I lost everything because of my own stupidity." At that moment, Hope appeared at the door, wearing small pajamas and holding a glass of water. "For the sad man," she said, offering the glass to Walter. Walter looked at the girl in surprise. "Who is she?" "It's complicated," Caleb said. "But she's the one who saved me at the station that day. If it weren't for her—" Walter took the glass and drank the water slowly, studying Hope. "You're the little girl who pushed me?" Hope nodded. "You were going to hurt someone I like. I had to stop you." "And how did you know I was going to do that?" "Because you had so much pain in your heart. People with pain in their hearts sometimes do things they don't want to do." Walter felt tears stream down his face. "You're right, little one. I didn't want to hurt anyone. I was just lost." Hope approached him and touched his hand gently. "You don't have to be lost anymore. You can stay with our family if you want." Hope's suggestion that Walter stay with the family caught Caleb completely off guard. The man who had tried to hurt him weeks ago was now sitting on his porch, vulnerable and repentant, yet he still represented a complication the family wasn't prepared to face. "Hope, go inside," Caleb said gently. "The adults need to talk." But the girl shook her head with determination. He needs help, and you need each other. What do you mean, we need each other? Walter asked, confused. Because you know how to do things that Uncle Caleb doesn't know, and he has things that you need. Before either man could question her, Hope went into the house and returned a few minutes later with one of her drawings. This one showed two men working together in a workshop, surrounded by furniture and tools, with expressions of concentration and satisfaction. You used to work with wood, she said to Walter. Your hands still remember how to make beautiful things, even when your head is confused. Walter looked at his own hands, calloused from years of manual labor. How do you know that? I see it in your hands. And I see that Uncle Caleb is having trouble at the factory because he's missing someone who truly understands wood. Caleb was surprised by the accuracy of the observation. Indeed, since his most experienced master craftsman had retired the previous year, the quality of the furniture had declined and some important clients had cancelled orders. Walter, Caleb said hesitantly, would you be interested in working at my factory, not as a partner, but as a skilled employee? After everything I've done? After threatening you? You were sick, confused, and now you have a chance to start over. Walter was silent for a long time, looking at the document he still held in his hands. I don't deserve your generosity, Caleb. It's not about deserving, Hope intervened. It's about needing. You two need to help each other to get well. Evelyn, who had been listening from the upstairs window, finally came down to join the conversation. She was still in her nightgown and robe, but her expression was determined. If Hope thinks he should stay, then he should stay, she said simply. This child is never wrong about people. Evelyn, are you sure? Caleb asked. I am. And besides, we have a spare room out back. He can stay there temporarily until he gets back on his feet. Walter looked at this strange family that was offering shelter to someone who had tried to harm them, and he felt something he hadn't experienced in years, genuine hope. I accept, he said finally, but on one condition. I want to work hard to deserve this second chance. In the following days, Walter's arrival at the Montgomery house created a whole new dynamic. The man settled into the small room out back and began working at the factory, demonstrating woodworking skills that impressed even the most experienced employees. He has golden hands, Mr. Benedict, the factory supervisor, commented to Caleb. He did a piece in cherry wood yesterday that I've never seen the like of. Where did you find this man? Caleb didn't know how to explain the whole story, so he simply said he was an old acquaintance who was going through a rough patch. Walter, for his part, was extremely grateful for the opportunity. He worked from dawn till dusk, refused to accept any payment beyond the basic for his needs, and gradually began to show a gentle personality that had been hidden under years of depression and alcoholism. I stopped drinking, he confided to Caleb one afternoon. Since that blow to the head, I don't feel the urge anymore. It's like something inside me changed. And how do you feel about that? Better than I've felt in years. My mind is clearer. My hands are steadier. I can go back to doing what I've always loved, working with wood. Hope watched this transformation with quiet satisfaction, as if she knew she had planted the seed of something important. She had started visiting Walter in his makeshift workshop out back, bringing drawings that helped him with ideas for new projects. She has a natural talent for design, Walter commented to Evelyn. Her drawings show proportions and details that would take an adult years to learn. Hope is special in many ways, Evelyn agreed, watching the girl teach Walter how to carve wooden birds. But not everything was running perfectly. William had developed an ambiguous attitude toward Walter. On one hand, he respected the man's skills and appreciated how he was helping the family. On the other, he couldn't completely forget that this was the man who had threatened his father and baby brothers. "I don't understand how you can trust him so quickly," William told his parents in a private conversation. "What if he's just biding his time to get revenge?" "William, people can change," Caleb explained. "Walter was sick, lost in his own pain. Now that he's healing, he's showing who he really is. But what if he's not healed? What if it's all an act?" "Then hope would warn us," Evelyn said with conviction. "She always knows when something isn't right." As if she had overheard the conversation, Hope appeared in the room at that moment, carrying a new drawing. The image showed William and Walter working together on what looked like a carpentry project, both smiling. "William can learn cool things from Uncle Walter," she said, "and Uncle Walter can teach him how to make things with his hands, not just with his head." "I don't want to learn carpentry," William protested. "I'm going to study engineering." "You can study engineering and also know how to make things with your hands," Hope retorted. "It will help you understand how things work better." Reluctantly, William agreed to spend a few afternoons in the workshop with Walter. To his surprise, he discovered that he actually enjoyed the manual labor, and that Walter's practical explanations helped him understand physics and math concepts more concretely. "See," Walter said, showing him how to calculate the strength of a beam. "If you understand how wood behaves under pressure, you can apply the same principles to steel, concrete, any material." William lit up. "So carpentry is like engineering on a small scale?" "Exactly. Our ancestors built magnificent cathedrals and bridges without computers, just with practical knowledge and intuition." Meanwhile, the summer festival was fast approaching, and the whole town was buzzing with preparations. Hope had made several drawings related to the event, all showing happy people having fun, but always with that persistent image of the damaged church roof. "Father Anthony installed extra supports where you indicated," Caleb told her, "but he's worried it might not be enough." "It will be okay," Hope said confidently. "When people are prepared, they can avoid the bad things." 2 days before the festival, something unexpected happened. Dr. Lewis, the social worker, returned to conduct the home assessment she had promised. This time, however, she didn't come alone. She brought with her a middle-aged couple who introduced themselves as potential adoptive parents for Hope. "Mr. and Mrs. Montgomery," Dr. Lewis said. "These are John and Martha Silverton. They are interested in adopting a child and have a profile that matches Hope's needs very well." The Silvertons seemed kind and well-intentioned. John was a university professor, and Martha worked as a child psychologist. They had lost a baby years ago and now wanted to offer a home to a child in need. "We heard about Hope's case through social services," Martha explained. "An intelligent girl who has been through trauma but who is recovering well in a stable family environment." Hope, who had hidden behind the armchair when the visitors arrived, watched everything with her large, expressive eyes. She didn't say a word during the entire introduction, but her face reflected a deep sadness. "Hope," Dr. Lewis called gently, "would you like to come talk to us? Mr. and Mrs. Silverton would very much like to meet you." The girl slowly shook her head and clung to Evelyn's leg. "She's still adjusting to strangers," Evelyn explained, but her own voice trembled with emotion. "It's perfectly normal," John said understandingly. "Children who have experienced abandonment have difficulty trusting new people." Perhaps we could start with gradual visits," Martha suggested. "Give her time to get used to us before any change." But before anyone could answer, Hope came out from behind the armchair and walked to her box of drawings. She took a piece of paper and began to draw furiously, tears streaming down her small face. The drawing that emerged showed 2 figures, a man and a woman, reaching out their hands to a small child. But the child in the drawing was flying away, transformed into a bird, heading toward a familiar house on the horizon. Hope's drawing created an awkward silence in the room. All the adults looked at the image where the child turned into a bird to escape, and the symbolism was impossible to ignore. Dr. Lewis was the first to break the silence. "Hope, can you explain this drawing to me?" she asked, crouching beside the girl. "I don't want to leave," Hope said in a small but firm voice. "This is my real family." Martha Silverton looked at her husband with an expression of painful understanding. "Sweetheart, we know it's hard to leave people you love, but sometimes changes are necessary for your own good." "It's not for my good," Hope retorted, surprising everyone with her determination. "You are good people, but you are not my family. My family is here." John Silverton addressed Caleb and Evelyn. "We understand that you've grown attached to the girl, but you need to understand that our home offers long-term stability, specific educational resources for children who have been through trauma." "With all due respect," Evelyn interrupted, standing up, "Hope is not a problem to be solved. She is our daughter." "Legally, she is not," Dr. Lewis said gently but firmly. "You are caring for her temporarily while we find the best permanent solution." "Then let's make it permanent," Caleb declared. "We want to officially adopt Hope." Dr. Lewis exchanged glances with the Silvertons. "Mr. Montgomery, you already have 3 children, including newborn twins?" "The Silvertons have no children and have specialized resources to deal with traumatized children." Specialized resources don't replace genuine love," Evelyn said, picking Hope up. "And this girl has already lost one family. Do you want her to lose another?" At that moment, William ran down the stairs, followed by Walter, who had heard raised voices in the living room. "What's going on?" William asked, looking at Hope, who was crying silently in Evelyn's arms. "They want to take Hope away," Caleb explained briefly. "Take her where?" Walter asked, approaching. "To a new family," Hope said between sobs. "But I don't want a new family. I already have a family." William felt an unexpected anger rise in his chest. Despite all his initial reservations about Hope, she had become an integral part of their lives. The idea of losing her now seemed unacceptable. "You can't just take her," he said to Dr. Lewis. "She saved our family, literally." "Saved you how?" John Silverton asked, curious. Caleb hesitated, realizing that telling the true story about the encounter at the train station could further complicate the legal situation. But Hope spoke up. "I saved Uncle Caleb and my baby brothers from a man who wanted to hurt them," she said simply. "And now the sad man has become part of our family too." All eyes turned to Walter, who became visibly uncomfortable with the attention. "It's a long story," Caleb said quickly. "And a story that needs to be told to the social workers," Dr. Lewis said with a serious expression. "Mr. Montgomery, are there details about Hope's arrival in your family that you haven't told us?" Before Caleb could answer, Hope wriggled out of Evelyn's arms and ran to her box of drawings. She took out several sheets and spread them on the living room floor, showing a sequence of images that told the whole story. The meeting at the station, Walter threatening the family, herself pushing the man, the reconciliation, and finally, Walter working happily in the workshop. "This is the true story," she said. "And that's why we're a real family, because we went through hard things together and helped each other." Dr. Lewis studied the drawings with growing attention. "Mr. Montgomery, I need you to tell me exactly what happened when you first found Hope." Caleb looked at Walter, who nodded encouragingly. Then, slowly, he told the whole story. His financial problems, the arranged meeting with Walter, the threats, Hope's miraculous intervention, and how it had all been resolved weeks later. "So you were in real danger when Hope appeared?" John Silverton asked. "Mortal danger," Caleb confirmed. "If she hadn't acted, I probably—" He didn't finish the sentence, but everyone understood the implication. "And now, Mr. Croft lives with you?" Dr. Lewis asked. "In the room out back," Evelyn explained. "He was homeless, struggling with alcoholism and depression. Hope insisted he needed help, not punishment." Walter stepped forward. "If I may," he said, addressing the Silvertons, "this girl has a special gift for seeing what people really need. She not only saved the Montgomerys' lives, she saved mine too." "How so?" "I was completely lost, consumed by anger and alcohol. I blamed Caleb for my own mistakes. Hope made me realize I didn't have to be an enemy. I could be part of a family." Martha Silverton looked at her husband, clearly touched by the story. "John, maybe we should reconsider." "No," John said firmly. "A complex emotional situation like this is exactly why this child needs a more structured environment, with trained professionals." Hope approached the Silvertons, her small face determined. "You are good people," she said. "You will find a child who needs you, but it's not me." "Sweetheart, you're only 4 years old," Martha said gently. "You can't make such an important decision." "Yes, I can," Hope replied, "because I know things you don't know. I know you will be wonderful parents, but to another child. A little girl with curly hair who will come into your lives in 2 months." Martha and John looked at each other, surprised. "How can you know that?" "Because I see things that are going to happen, and I see you very happy with a little girl who really needs you, not with one who already has a family." Dr. Lewis watched the entire interaction with growing fascination. "Hope, do you really believe you can see the future?" "I don't believe, I see," Hope corrected. "And I see that if you take me away from this family, you'll be doing the wrong thing for everyone." "How wrong for everyone?" Hope went back to her drawings and picked up one she hadn't shown yet. The image was disturbing. It showed a house where a family was crying, a small girl sad in a strange house, and in the background, another child alone in a place that looked like an orphanage. "If I leave here," Hope explained, "this family will be very sad and won't be able to help other children who need it. You will be frustrated because I won't be happy, and you won't be available when the girl who really needs you appears, and another child will remain alone instead of finding a family." The silence that followed was profound. Everyone in the room was processing the implications of what Hope had said. "She's describing a domino effect," John murmured to his wife. "As if removing her from here could affect multiple families." "That's right," Hope confirmed. "Everything is connected. That's why I have to stay where I belong." At that moment, the twins, Benjamin and Theo, started crying upstairs, and Evelyn automatically got up to attend to them. "I'll go," Hope said, running up the stairs. A few minutes later, the crying stopped completely. "Does that happen often?" Martha asked, impressed. "Always," William confirmed. "It's like she knows exactly what they need." "The babies calm down just with her presence," Walter added. "It's something I've never seen in my life." Dr. Lewis slowly closed her folder of documents. "I need time to process all of this. This case is unusual." "Dr. Lewis," said Evelyn, who had returned, "we know you have protocols to follow, but please consider what is best for Hope, not just what seems most appropriate on paper." The social worker nodded. "I will postpone any decision for a few weeks. I need to observe the family dynamic more closely and talk to my supervisors about the situation." After the visitors left, the family gathered in the living room, all still processing what had happened. Hope was visibly exhausted from the emotional confrontation, but also seemed relieved to have been able to express her feelings clearly. "Did you really see that girl with curly hair?" Evelyn asked curiously. "I did," Hope confirmed, "and I saw you being parents to more children too in the future. This house is going to be full of love and children who need care." Caleb looked around the room, imagining what his house would be like, full of adopted children, and found that the idea didn't scare him. On the contrary, it felt right. The summer festival arrived with a light rain that left the whole town apprehensive. Father Anthony had reinforced the church roof according to Hope's prediction. but still checked the extra supports 3 times before opening the doors to the community. The girl had insisted that the festival should go on as planned, assuring them that her visions showed everyone having fun without serious problems. "You just need to listen for the strange noise," she reminded the priest when the family arrived at the church in the early afternoon. "When you hear it, tell everyone to leave slowly." "And what if I don't hear it?" Father Anthony asked, half joking, half worried. "You'll hear it," Hope said confidently, "and I'll be here to remind you too." The festival was lively despite the light rain. Stalls with typical food filled the parish hall. Children ran between the tables in festive clothes, and a local band played traditional music. The Montgomery family had split up. Caleb and Walter were helping at the barbecue stall. Evelyn was looking after the twins who were sleeping in their stroller, and William was participating in the square dance with his schoolmates. Hope circulated through the festival like a little hostess, greeting people she already knew and being introduced to those who hadn't interacted with her yet. Her reputation in town had changed drastically since her conversation with Father Anthony. From strange girl to special, a child who had gifts to help others. "Hope," Brenda called, approaching with a tray of sweets. "My junior wants to thank you personally." Junior approached shyly. The boy had followed Hope's advice about driving slower on the dangerous curve, and the week before he had passed by the exact spot where she had predicted the accident. The road was indeed full of potholes, and if he had maintained his usual speed, he certainly would have skidded. "Thanks for warning me about the curve," he said, crouching down to Hope's level. "You saved me from a serious accident." "I'm glad you listened," Hope replied with a smile. "Sometimes people don't listen, and then the bad things happen anyway." "And now?" Junior asked curiously. "Do you see anything else about me?" Hope was quiet for a moment, her eyes becoming distant. "I see you in college, studying to be a road engineer. You're going to help make streets safer for everyone." "Really, I hadn't even thought about that field yet." "You will soon," Hope said, "and you'll like it a lot." Around 8 in the evening, when the festival was at its peak, Hope suddenly stopped in the middle of a conversation and tilted her head, as if listening to something no one else could perceive. Her eyes widened, and she ran to Father Anthony, who was talking with some parishioners near the altar. "Father, the noise," she said, pulling on his cassock. "What noise, my child?" Everyone fell silent for a few seconds. Then a low, prolonged creak echoed from the church ceiling, coming from the exact area Hope had identified weeks before. Father Anthony didn't hesitate. "Everyone, let's proceed calmly to the parish hall. This is just a precaution." His calm but firm voice made people start moving without panic. Caleb and Walter helped organize the exit, while Evelyn quickly grabbed the twins' stroller. "Hope, come with me," Evelyn called. But the girl shook her head. "I need to make sure everyone is out." She ran through the church, checking corners and nooks, mentally counting how many people she had seen enter and how many were leaving. At the back of the church, she found Mrs. Edwards, an 80-year-old woman who was having trouble walking. "Grandma Edwards, come with me," Hope said, taking the elderly woman's hand. "My dear, my feet can't take it." "I'll help," Hope said, supporting the woman with all her small strength. Together, they slowly made their way to the exit. When they reached the door, Father Anthony did a quick count and confirmed that everyone was safe in the parish hall. Not even a minute passed, and a loud crash echoed through the church. A section of the roof had collapsed exactly where the side altar was, at the precise spot Hope had predicted. Heavy beams and tiles fell on the pews, where dozens of people had been sitting just minutes before. "My God," whispered Brenda, looking through the hall window. "If we hadn't left." "Hope saved everyone," Junior said, impressed. But the girl seemed uninterested in the praise. She approached Father Anthony, who was looking sadly at his damaged church. "Father, don't be sad," she said. "I'll make a drawing for you." She took paper and pencils from Evelyn's bag and began to draw quickly. The image that emerged showed the same church, but renovated with a new, more beautiful roof and many people working together on the reconstruction. "The church will be even more beautiful afterward," Hope said, handing him the drawing. "And everyone will help because they saw that you took care of them when they could have been hurt." Father Anthony looked at the drawing and felt tears in his eyes. "How do you manage to see hope in everything, my child?" "Because there's always hope," Hope replied simply. "We just need to know where to look." In the days following the church accident, something extraordinary happened in Oakhaven. The news of how Hope had predicted the collapse and saved lives spread quickly, but instead of creating fear or superstition, it generated a wave of gratitude and admiration for the Montgomery family. Donations began pouring in from all over the region for the church's reconstruction. Business owners from neighboring towns offered building materials. Carpenters volunteered to work for free, and even the mayor of Oakhaven announced that the town council would contribute to the costs. "It's exactly as Hope drew," Evelyn commented, watching the reconstruction work begin. "That girl has a special gift," said Walter, who had offered to coordinate the carpentry work. "Not just to see the future, but to inspire the best in people." The change in the community's perception of Hope also positively affected her adoption case. Dr. Lewis returned a week after the summer festival with a very different expression from her previous visit. "I've received dozens of calls from town residents," she told Caleb and Evelyn, all of them talking about how Hope has helped their families in one way or another. "Ah, and does that change anything regarding the process?" Evelyn asked hopefully. "It changes everything," Dr. Lewis replied. "It's clear that Hope has not only adapted to this family, but has become an integral part of the community. Separating her from here would be detrimental to everyone involved." "Does that mean we can officially adopt her?" "It means I will recommend to my supervisors that they approve the adoption process. You have demonstrated that you can provide not only a loving home, but also an environment where Hope's special gifts can be cultivated positively." Hope, who had been listening from the kitchen, ran into the living room and threw herself into Evelyn's arms. "Am I a real daughter now?" "You've always been our real daughter," Evelyn said, hugging her tightly. "Now it will just be official." But the good news didn't stop there. That same week, something Hope had predicted came true in a surprising way. John and Martha Silverton appeared at the Montgomery's house, but not with the intention of taking Hope. "We came to thank you," Martha said with tears of joy in her eyes. "Hope was right. We found our daughter." They told them that a 3-year-old girl with curly hair had been found abandoned in a nearby town, exactly as Hope had described. The child was in a state of shock, but when she met the Silvertons, the connection was immediate and profound. "It's as if she was waiting for you," John said, "and if we had insisted on taking Hope, we would have never met our true daughter." "What's her name?" Hope asked, curious. "Sophia," Martha replied, "and she draws little birds, just like you." Hope smiled. "She's going to be very happy with you." That night, the Montgomery family gathered for dinner with an additional member. Walter had been officially invited to become a permanent part of the family, not just as an employee, but as a sort of adoptive uncle to the children. "I never thought that at 48 I would find a real family," he said, emotional. "Family isn't about age or blood," Hope said, repeating something she had heard Evelyn say. "It's about people who choose each other and take care of each other." William, who had matured a lot during all these events, raised his glass of soda. "A toast to our crazy family," he said with a smile. "Crazy how?" Hope asked, feigning indignation. "Crazy because it has a girl who sees the future, an ex-enemy who became an uncle, parents who adopt special children, and yet it works perfectly." Everyone laughed and toasted, but Hope became serious for a moment. I don't see the future, she said. I see possibilities. And I always choose the ones with the most love. 3 months passed since the summer festival, and life in Oakhaven had found a new rhythm. The church was being rebuilt as Hope's drawing had predicted, with a stronger roof and a more beautiful design that attracted visitors from neighboring towns. The Montgomery furniture factory was thriving with the joint work of Caleb and Walter, who had developed a special line of handmade furniture that had become highly sought after. Hope, now officially adopted, had completely settled in as part of the family and community. Her visions continued to happen, but she had learned to be more selective about when and how to share them, especially after some difficult experiences where people reacted with fear instead of gratitude. On a sunny September morning, she was in the backyard playing with the twins, Benjamin and Theo, now almost 6 months old and starting to sit up on their own, when she suddenly became very quiet and serious. Her eyes took on that distant expression the family had learned to recognize as a sign of an important vision. "Hope?" Evelyn called, who was hanging clothes on the line. "Is everything okay?" The girl didn't answer immediately. Instead, she ran into the house and came back with her drawing supplies. What she created left Evelyn worried. It showed an unknown man arriving in town, but it wasn't a positive image. The man in the drawing had a dark expression and was carrying a folder of documents. "Who is this man, honey?" Evelyn asked. "Someone coming to look for me," Hope said, her small voice filled with a sadness that made Evelyn's heart ache. "Someone who says he has rights over me." "What kind of rights?" "Blood rights," Hope replied, and then added something that chilled Evelyn's blood. "He's my real father." Evelyn sat down heavily in a yard chair, processing the information. They had assumed Hope was a complete orphan, abandoned with no known family. The possibility of a biological father appearing had never been seriously considered. "When is he going to arrive?" she asked, trying to keep her voice calm. "Soon, maybe today, maybe tomorrow." "And what does he want?" Hope was quiet for a moment, concentrating. "He looked for me for a long time, but not because he loves me. Because he thinks I can help him make money." "Nice." The conversation was interrupted by Caleb's arrival for lunch. When Evelyn told him about Hope's vision, he was visibly shaken. "We have to contact Dr. Lewis immediately," he said. "If someone shows up claiming paternity, we need to be legally prepared." "Daddy," Hope said, using the term she had started using for Caleb in recent weeks. "The man isn't bad, just lost, like Uncle Walter was." "Even so, we need to be careful," Caleb replied. "Our adoption is still being processed if he has legal documents." "He does," Hope confirmed sadly, "but the documents don't tell the real story." The next afternoon, Hope's predictions came true. A man of about 40 arrived in town, driving an old but well-maintained car. He was thin, with premature grey hair and clothes that suggested financial hardship, but his posture was determined. He went first to the town hall, then to the records office, asking questions about the Montgomery family and a 4-year-old girl who was supposedly living with them. "Someone is asking about you in town," Mrs. Carman, the neighbor, warned when she came to get eggs from the Montgomerys' yard. A strange man asking questions about Hope. Caleb thanked her for the warning and immediately called Dr. Lewis, who promised to come the next day. But the man arrived first. Around 7 in the evening, as the family was having dinner, someone knocked on the door. Hope immediately tensed, grabbing Evelyn's arm. "It's him," she whispered. Caleb answered the door and found a man who identified himself as Gene Stevens. He seemed nervous but determined and carried a folder of documents under his arm. "Mr. Montgomery, I'm Gene Stevens. I believe you are taking care of my daughter." "And which daughter would that be?" Caleb asked, though he already knew the answer. "Hope Stevens, a 4-year-old girl who disappeared a few months ago." I have the birth certificate here. Caleb looked over his shoulder and saw Hope hiding behind the living room armchair, exactly as she had done on Dr. Lewis's first visit. "Please come in," Caleb said, deciding it was better to face the situation head-on. Jean entered and immediately searched for Hope with his eyes. When he saw her, his face lit up with a mixture of relief and emotion. "Hope, my girl, I finally found you." But Hope didn't run to him. Instead, she hid even further behind the armchair. Jean seemed confused and hurt by the girl's cold reaction. "Doesn't she recognize me?" he asked Caleb. "I'm her father." "Mr. Stevens," Evelyn said, joining the conversation. "Hope has been through serious trauma before she came to us. She has difficulty trusting new people." "New people? I'm her father. Look, I have the documents here." He opened the folder and showed a birth certificate that indeed listed a Hope Stevens, daughter of Jean Stevens and Maria Stevens. "Where have you been all these months?" Caleb asked. "Looking for her, after my wife. After Maria had her mental health problems and was hospitalized, Hope disappeared. I thought someone from Maria's family had taken her, but I found out they hadn't. I've been traveling to towns in the region for months, showing her photo, asking, 'And why didn't you go to the police?'" Jean lowered his eyes. "Because I had issues with my papers, irregular work. I was afraid that if I involved the authorities, I'd end up losing her to adoption and never see her again." Throughout this conversation, Hope remained hidden, but her large eyes watched everything. Finally, she came out from behind the armchair and approached slowly. "I know you," she said to Jean, "but you're not my father." "What do you mean I'm not your father? I have the certificate, witnesses." "You're the man who lived in the house where my mother got sick," Hope continued. "But you never took care of me. When she got really bad, you left me alone." Jean turned pale. "Hope, the situation was very difficult. Your mother was very sick. I didn't know how to take care of a small child alone. You took me to a house with other men who talked loud and drank a lot," Hope said, her memories becoming clearer as she spoke. "And when they got tired of me, you took me to the lady's house who took care of many children. I thought it was better for you. I didn't have the means. And then you disappeared," Hope concluded, "until now." The silence in the room was uncomfortable. It was clear that Jean had not been a present or caring father, even if he was Hope's biological father. "But now I can take care of you," Jean said desperately. "I found a steady job. I have a place to live. We can be a real family." "I already have a real family," Hope replied, walking to Evelyn and Caleb. "A family that never abandoned me." "Hope, you don't understand. Legally, you're my daughter. They can't adopt you without my consent." "And why wouldn't you give your consent?" Caleb asked directly. Jean hesitated, and in that hesitation, Hope saw something that confirmed her suspicions. "Because someone told you I was worth money," she said simply. "What do you mean?" Evelyn asked. "Someone told him about my visions, about how the people in town respect me, and he thought he could use that to make money." Jean turned red. "It's not quite like that." "It's exactly like that," Hope said. "You want to take me to other towns, for me to predict things for people who will pay for it." The accusation left everyone shocked. The idea of using a small child as a sort of commercial psychic was revolting. "Mr. Stevens," Caleb said, his voice filled with controlled indignation, "if that is your intention—" "Hold on," said Walter, who had arrived from work in the middle of the conversation. "Is this man proposing to exploit a 4-year-old child?" "It's not exploitation," Jean defended himself. "It's a gift she has. Why shouldn't it be used to help our financial situation?" "Because she's a child, not a money-making machine," Evelyn said firmly. Hope approached Jean once more, her small eyes determined. "You can try to take me," she said, "but it won't work. Because my gift doesn't work when I'm sad or scared, and away from my real family, I'll only be sad and scared. Hope, you had your chance to be my father when I needed you, she continued. Now I don't need you anymore. I have parents who truly love me. The tension in the Montgomerys' living room was palpable after Hope's direct words to Jean. The man remained silent for a few moments, processing the clear rejection from the girl he had searched for months, but clearly not for the right reasons. Hope, he tried again, his voice now pleading. I know I made mistakes in the past, but I'm your biological father. That has to mean something. It means you created me, Hope replied with a maturity unsettling for her 4 years. But it doesn't mean you raised me with love. Jean looked around the room, observing the united family that had formed around his biological daughter. Caleb and Evelyn flanked Hope protectively. William had come downstairs and positioned himself in solidarity with his parents, and even Walter was present as part of this unconventional but clearly loving family. You don't understand, Jean said, his frustration growing. I have legal rights. I can go to court and claim my daughter. You can try, said a voice from the door. It was Dr. Lewis, who had arrived without anyone noticing. But it will be very difficult to explain to a judge why you abandoned your daughter for months and only came looking for her after you heard she had developed a reputation in town. Jean turned, surprised. Who are you? Dr. Patricia Lewis, the social worker responsible for Hope's case, and I have a few questions for you, Mr. Stevens. The social worker entered the room carrying a thick folder of documents. Her presence immediately changed the dynamic of the situation, bringing official authority to what had started as a family confrontation. First, she said, sitting in a chair and opening her folder, I'd like you to explain why you didn't report Hope's disappearance to the proper authorities. I already explained I had problems with my papers. Second, Dr. Lewis continued, ignoring the answer, I'd like you to tell me about the circumstances that led to Hope leaving your original custody. Jean became visibly uncomfortable. My wife was sick. I couldn't take care of a small child alone. So you placed her in an unlicensed care home, Dr. Lewis said, consulting her papers. A home that was later shut down due to allegations of child abuse. Jean's face turned pale. I didn't know that was happening. You didn't know because you never visited your daughter, Dr. Lewis retorted. During the 8 months Hope stayed at that home, you didn't make a single visit. Third, she continued relentlessly, I'd like you to explain how you knew Hope was here in Oakhaven, specifically with the Montgomery family. Jean hesitated. Someone told me? Who? An acquaintance. Said a girl with features similar to Hope's was living here and that she had special abilities. And did this acquaintance suggest any way for you to benefit financially from these abilities? Jean's silence was eloquent. Dr. Lewis closed her folder and addressed him directly. Mr. Stevens, based on the evidence I've collected, it is clear that you abandoned Hope in inadequate conditions, failed to take measures to ensure her well-being, and are now trying to claim her not out of paternal love, but for financial gain. That's not true, isn't it? Then you would be willing to formally renounce your parental rights, allowing this family who clearly loves and cares for Hope to complete the adoption process? Jean was silent, his eyes darting nervously around the room. It was obvious that the suggestion of renouncing his rights was not in his plans. I need time to think, he said finally. In the meantime, said Dr. Lewis, Hope will remain where she is, under the care of the family that has demonstrated the ability to provide love, stability, and protection. At that moment, Hope approached Jean again. She held a sheet of paper she had drawn while the adults were talking. I made a drawing for you, she said, handing him the paper. The drawing showed 2 diverging paths. On one path, Jean appeared alone, but surrounded by people who seemed to respect and admire him, working on something that looked like carpentry or woodworking. On the other path, he was with Hope, but both looked sad, and there were dark figures around them representing exploitation and greed. "You can choose to be a good person," Hope said, "like Uncle Walter chose, but you can't force me to be part of a bad path." Jean looked at the drawing for a long time. "How do you know I know how to work with wood?" "Because I see your hands. They know how to make beautiful things, but you're using them for the wrong things. And if I choose the good path, what happens to me? You'll find people who will help you be truly happy, and maybe one day when I'm grown up, we can be friends." Walter stepped closer. "Mr. Stevens, if I may suggest, our factory is always in need of experienced craftsmen. If you really want to start over, we have honest work to offer." Jean looked at Walter in surprise. "You'd offer me a job, even after all this?" "Everyone deserves a second chance," Walter said. "I got mine here. Maybe you deserve yours too. But that would be here in Oakhaven. Could I see Hope sometimes?" "As a family friend," Caleb said carefully. "Not as a father, but as someone who cares about her well-being." Hope nodded. "If you choose to be a truly good person, we can be friends, but I will never be your daughter for you to use." Jean sat down heavily in a chair, the weight of his choices clearly on his shoulders. I just wanted a better life. After Maria got sick, I lost everything. When I heard Hope had this gift, I thought, "You thought you could use a child to solve your adult problems, Dr. Lewis completed." "Yes," he admitted finally, "and now I see how wrong that was. The first step to changing is recognizing your mistakes," said Father Anthony, who had arrived during the conversation, clearly called by someone in the family. "Mr. Stevens, if you truly want to do what's right for Hope, then you must do what's best for her, not for you." Jean looked at Hope, who watched everything with her large, understanding eyes. "Would you be happy if I stayed in town, working honestly without trying to interfere in your life with your new family?" "I would," Hope said, "because then you would be choosing the path of love instead of the path of greed. And would you forgive me for abandoning you when you needed me?" "I already have," Hope said simply. "People do bad things when they have pain in their heart, but now you can choose to do good things." Jean was silent for a few minutes. Finally, he turned to Dr. Lewis. "What do I need to do to formally renounce my parental rights?" "Are you sure about this decision?" she asked. "I am. Hope is right. I had my chance to be her father when she needed it. Now she has a real family." Dr. Lewis took some documents from her folder. "Then let's start the process right now." While the papers were being filled out, Hope approached Jean one last time. "Thank you," she said. "Why are you thanking me?" "For choosing to let me be happy, even when it was hard for you." That night, after all the visitors had left and Jean had signed the necessary documents to renounce his parental rights, the Montgomery family gathered in the living room to process everything that had happened. "How did you manage to see that he could change?" William asked Hope. "Because he wasn't evil deep down in his heart," she explained. "He was just lost and scared, like all people who do bad things." "And now?" Evelyn asked. "Now our family is truly complete," Hope said, "and the man who made me can start a new life too." "You don't feel angry at him?" Caleb asked. "Anger doesn't help anyone grow," Hope replied. "Love does. And now we have more love in our family, and he will have a chance to find love in his life too." Walter, who had remained quiet throughout the conversation, finally spoke. "Hope, you have a very big heart for such a small person." "My heart grew because you all taught me how to truly love," she said, "and now I can teach other people too." It was a perfect conclusion to a day that could have ended in tragedy, but instead had resulted in more love, more understanding, and an even stronger, more united family. 6 months passed since Gene renounced his parental rights, and life in Oakhaven had found an extraordinary balance. Hope's official adoption was finalized in an emotional ceremony at the city courthouse, where she officially became Hope Montgomery. Gene, who now worked at the factory and lived in a small rented house near the town center, was present as a guest, demonstrating how much he had changed. The furniture factory thrived as never before. The partnership between Caleb, Walter, and now Gene had created a unique line of handmade furniture that attracted buyers from all over the region. William, who had discovered a passion for woodworking beyond his studies, spent his afternoons helping in the workshop and was already talking about studying furniture design in addition to engineering. Hope had become a beloved figure not only in Oakhaven but in neighboring towns as well. Her consultations, as they had come to call the moments when she shared her visions, were always voluntary and focused on helping people in difficulty. Father Anthony had created an informal system where people who needed guidance could talk to Hope, always in the presence of responsible adults. On a cold March morning, almost a year after her arrival in the Montgomery family, Hope woke up with a vision more intense and detailed than any she had ever experienced. She ran to the kitchen where Evelyn was preparing breakfast, her eyes shining with an excitement she hadn't shown in a long time. "Mommy," she said, naturally using the title that now belonged to her by right, "I had a very important vision about our family." "What did you see, my dear?" Evelyn asked, crouching to be at Hope's level. "I saw where I really came from and why it was so important for me to find you." Evelyn felt a knot in her stomach. Hope rarely had visions about her own past, and when she did, they usually revealed disturbing information. "Can you tell me? I saw my real mother, not the one Gene said was my mother, but my real birth mother." "What do you mean, Hope?" The girl ran to get her drawing supplies and began to create a complex image that showed a young woman with dark hair, very similar to Hope herself, holding a baby. The woman in the drawing was crying, but there was an expression of deep love in her eyes. "Her name was Anna," Hope said as she drew. "And she loved me very much, but she was very sick. Not sick in the body, sick in the mind, like the mother Gene talked about. But Anna was my real mother. And what happened to her? She left me in a church when I was very little, with a note saying I was special and needed a family that could take care of my gift. But the people at the church didn't understand the note, and they put me in the system for abandoned children." Evelyn felt tears forming in her eyes. "And after that?" "After that, several families tried to adopt me, but something always happened. They got scared of my strange dreams, or they didn't know how to take care of a child who saw things. Then I ended up with Jean and Maria, who thought they could use me." "But how do you know all this now?" Hope stopped drawing and looked directly at Evelyn. "Because Anna came to me in my dreams last night. She's not sick anymore, and she wanted me to know the truth about who I am. The truth. My gift isn't just mine. Anna had the same gift, and her mother had it too. It's something that passes from mother to daughter in our family. But Anna didn't have a family like you to help her understand her gift." Evelyn sat down heavily in a chair. "Hope, your mother? Anna? Is she—" "She passed away 2 years ago," Hope said gently. "But now she's at peace. And she's happy because I found a family that loves me and understands my gift." At that moment, Caleb entered the kitchen and noticed the emotional atmosphere. "What's going on here?" Evelyn quickly told him about Hope's vision, and Caleb sat beside them, processing the information. "Hope," he said carefully, "are you sure this was a real vision, not just a dream?" "I'm sure," she replied. "And there's more. Anna showed me why I needed to find you specifically." "Why?" Hope made a new drawing, this one showing the Montgomery family, but with several additional children around them. Because you were going to become a special family, one that helps children other people can't help, and I came first to prepare the way. Prepare the way for what? For other children like me, children with special gifts or who have been through very difficult things. Our home is going to become a place where these children can grow with love and understand their gifts. Evelyn looked at Caleb, both feeling the weight of the revelation. It was a vision of the future that simultaneously thrilled and frightened them. "And how will we know when these children arrive?" Caleb asked. "I'll know," Hope said confidently, "and I'll help you take care of them, just like you took care of me." During the following weeks, the Montgomery family processed Hope's revelation about her origins and her purpose. The idea of becoming a foster family specializing in children with special gifts or deep trauma was something they had never considered, but it gradually began to make sense. "Thinking about it," Evelyn said in a conversation with Caleb, "we're already kind of an unconventional family. We have Hope with her gifts, Walter, who was our enemy and became family, Jean, who works with us after trying to harm us. And everyone found healing and purpose here," Caleb completed. "Maybe Hope is right about our destiny." The first confirmation of Hope's visions came 3 weeks later. Dr. Lewis appeared at the house with an urgent case. A 6-year-old boy named Raphael, who had been found in a situation of extreme neglect. What made him special was that he seemed to have communication skills with animals that left everyone perplexed. "No family has been able to handle him," Dr. Lewis explained. "Wherever he goes, the animals in the area behave strangely. Dogs become extremely protective, birds gather around him, even wild animals approach without fear." "And you thought of us because of Hope?" Evelyn asked. "Exactly. If anyone can understand a child with unusual gifts, it's you." When Raphael arrived at the Montgomery house, Hope greeted him as if he were a long-lost brother. The boy was small for his age, with curly red hair and intense green eyes that seemed to see through people. "Hi, Raphael," Hope said. "I knew you were coming." "How did you know?" he asked timidly. "Because I dreamed of you, and I saw that you talked to animals." Raphael was surprised. "You don't think it's weird?" "Of course not. I see things that haven't happened yet. Everyone has different gifts." Within hours, Raphael was playing in the backyard with Hope, and the birds that always visited the house were singing in a more beautiful symphony than had ever been heard there. "It's like they're celebrating," observed Walter, looking out the workshop window. "They are celebrating," Hope agreed, "because Raphael finally came home." 2 weeks later, Sophia arrived, a 5-year-old girl who had lost her speech after a trauma, but who drew with extraordinary skill, creating images that seemed to come to life on paper. After her came Peter, 7, who had the ability to feel people's emotions by touching them, a gift that left him constantly overwhelmed until he learned to control it. In 6 months, the Montgomery house had transformed into a home for 6 special children, each with their own gifts and challenges. Caleb and Evelyn had become parents to an extraordinary family, aided by Walter, who proved to be a patient and understanding uncle, and by Jean, who found purpose in helping the children develop practical skills in the workshop. William, now 17, had matured tremendously, caring for his younger adopted siblings. His plans to study engineering had evolved to include child psychology, inspired by the work he saw his parents doing daily. "How did you know it would work?" Evelyn asked Hope one night, as they watched all the children playing together in the yard. "Because I saw that love multiplies when it's shared," Hope replied. "And I saw that every child who came here would help the others grow too." "And you? How do you feel being the big sister to so many special children?" Hope smiled. that radiant smile that had won over the Montgomery family from day one. "I feel like I'm finally doing what I was born to do," she said, "helping families find each other, even when they don't know they're lost." 2 years had passed since Hope had transformed a simple adoption into the creation of the most extraordinary foster family Oakhaven had ever known. The Montgomery house now sheltered 8 special children, each with their own unique gifts, and had become a model studied by social workers from all over the region. On a sunny December morning, the eve of Hope's 6th birthday, she woke up with a vision different from all the others she had ever had. This one wasn't about tragedies to be averted or people to be helped, but about a revelation that would forever change her understanding of herself and her family's purpose. She ran to the backyard, where she found Evelyn organizing decorations for the next day's birthday party. Benjamin and Theo, now 2.5, played on the grass under the supervision of Raphael, who had become a protective older brother to all the younger ones. "Mommy," Hope said, her eyes shining with a mixture of excitement and emotion, "I need to tell the whole family something very important." "What is it, my dear?" Evelyn asked, noticing the solemnity in Hope's voice. "I discovered the most important secret of all, about why our family is special and why all these children came here." Evelyn called all the children and sent someone to get Caleb, William, and Walter. In a few minutes, the whole family was gathered in the living room, including Jean, who now had lunch with them every Sunday. "What does Hope have to tell us?" Caleb asked, sitting on the floor with the children. Hope stood in the center of the circle they had formed, her small hands holding a drawing she had made during the night. The drawing was different from all the others. It showed a huge tree with many branches, and on each branch, a different family. On the trunk of the tree, a single word was written: love. "You know I have visions about things that are going to happen," she began. "But tonight I had a vision about things that happened a long, long time ago." "What do you mean?" asked Sophia, the girl who had arrived mute, but now spoke normally, though she still preferred to express herself through her magical drawings. "I saw that our family didn't start with me arriving here," Hope explained. "In fact, it started many years ago, when you lost Isabel." Evelyn felt tears in her eyes upon hearing the name of the daughter she had lost 3 years earlier. It was the first time Hope had mentioned the sister she had never personally met. "Isabel didn't leave by accident," Hope continued gently. "She left because she had a very special mission in the place where she went." "What mission?" William asked, his voice choked with emotion. "She became a guardian angel for special children who don't have families," Hope said, "and she's the one who guided each of us to you." Hope showed the drawing, pointing to different parts of the tree. "Look, here's my story. Isabel saw that I was alone and sad, and she whispered in my real mother Anna's heart that I needed a special family. That's why Anna brought me close to you." "And us?" asked Peter, the boy who felt emotions through touch. "Isabel guided each of you too. Raphael, remember when you were in that bad place and suddenly felt you had to run away? It was her who gave you courage. Sophia, remember when you stopped talking and only drew little birds? The birds were messages from Isabel telling you that a new family was waiting." Each child listened with growing fascination, many of them remembering specific moments where they had felt a protective presence or an inner voice that had guided them to safety. "But why would she do that?" Evelyn asked, tears streaming freely down her face. "Because she knew you had hearts big enough to love many children, not just one," Hope replied. "And because she wanted the pain of losing her to turn into the joy of gaining many children." Caleb wiped his eyes, moved. "Hope, how can you be sure of all this?" "Because she came to talk to me in my dream. Isabel, she's beautiful, with hair like Mommy's and eyes like yours, Daddy, and she said that now that our family is complete, she can rest in peace." "Complete how?" Walter asked. Hope smiled mysteriously. There's still one person missing, someone very special who will arrive soon. Another child? Evelyn asked. No, Hope said, her eyes twinkling mischievously. A big person, someone who will make Uncle Walter very happy. Walter turned red. Hope, what are you talking about? You're going to find a girlfriend, she announced, causing laughter and teasing from all the children. A very nice lady who also lost people she loved and who will love our crazy family. And when is this going to happen? He asked, between embarrassed and curious. Tomorrow, at my birthday party, Hope said. She'll come as a visitor because she heard about our family, but she'll stay because she'll fall in love with Uncle Walter. The next day, Hope's birthday party attracted people from all over town. The Montgomerys' backyard was full of neighbors, friends, factory employees, and even regional officials who had come to see the famous family that cared for special children. Among the visitors was a woman of about 35, Christine Allen, who had driven from a neighboring town specifically to learn about the Montgomerys' work. She was a psychologist specializing in children with trauma and had lost her fiancé in an accident 2 years earlier. That's her, Hope whispered to Walter when she saw Christine arrive. The lady from my dream. Walter looked in the indicated direction and felt something strange happen in his chest. Christine was pretty, but there was something in her eyes that touched him deeply, a mixture of sadness and hope that he recognized in himself. Hope, you can't just decide who's going to date whom, he said nervously. I'm not deciding, she replied innocently. I'm just telling you what I saw. During the party, Christine was enchanted by the family dynamic. She watched how each child's space was respected, how their gifts were celebrated instead of feared, and how genuine love circulated among everyone. It's extraordinary, she commented to Evelyn. I've never seen children with special needs so balanced and happy. The secret is to accept that they are special, not to try to make them normal, Evelyn explained. And how did you learn that? Our eldest daughter taught us, Caleb said, pointing to Hope, who at that moment was organizing a game where each child used their gift to entertain the others. Christine watched Hope with fascination. I've heard about her predictive abilities. Is it really true? Come meet her in person, suggested Walter, appearing beside them. She loves meeting new people. The introduction between Christine and Hope was magical. The girl looked at the woman with those piercing eyes and said, You lost someone very important, but he's happy where he is because he knows you're going to be happy again. Christine felt tears in her eyes. How did you? He's here now, whispering in my ear that Uncle Walter is a very good person and will take good care of you. The rest of the afternoon was a succession of magical moments. Christine and Walter talked for hours, discovering surprising affinities and a connection they both thought they would never feel again. The children, led by Hope, made sure to help the budding romance, creating situations where the two were left alone to talk. At the end of the day, as the last guests were leaving, Christine said goodbye to the family with a promise to return the following week. To get to know your work better, she said officially. To see Uncle Walter again, Hope translated with a mischievous smile. That night, when all the children were asleep, the original family gathered on the porch to talk about the day. Hope was right again, William commented. Christine and Walter were practically love at first sight. And now is our family really complete? Evelyn asked. For now, Hope said mysteriously, but families that truly love always have room for more love. Will more children come? Caleb asked. Whenever they need to, Hope confirmed, because our house has become a place where love multiplies instead of dividing. 6 months later, Walter and Christine were married in a beautiful ceremony at the rebuilt church, with all the family's children participating as ring bearers and flower girls. Christine moved into the Montgomery house, which had been expanded to accommodate the growing family. A year after that, another special child arrived, Michael, 3 years old, who had the ability to heal minor wounds with his touch. And then came Anna Julia, 5, who could make plants grow just by talking to them. With each new child that arrived, the family grew stronger. William, now studying child psychology at the university, spent weekends at home helping with the children. Jean had become a beloved adoptive grandfather to all, teaching carpentry to the older kids and telling stories to the younger ones. On a starry night, 3 years after her arrival in the family, Hope was in the yard watching the sky when she felt a familiar presence beside her. She turned and saw a translucent girl with brown hair and gentle eyes. "Hi, Isabel," Hope said naturally. "Hi, little sister," the presence replied. "I came to say goodbye." "You're leaving?" "My mission here is over. Our family is complete and happy. All the children I brought to you are safe and loved." "I'll miss you," Hope said. "No, you won't," Isabel smiled, "because now you know that love never really goes away. It just transforms into more love." "And what happens now?" "Now you'll grow up. You'll learn to use your gifts to help many other families, and one day when you're big, you'll teach other special children how to find their chosen families." Isabel began to fade slowly, but her voice still echoed in the air. "Thank you for taking such good care of our family, Hope. Daddy and Mommy will never be sad again because you brought enough joy to last a lifetime." The next morning, Hope woke up with a feeling of deep peace. She ran to the yard where she found her whole family gathered for breakfast outdoors, a new tradition they had created. Caleb and Evelyn, William visiting from the university, Walter and Christine, Jean, and all her special sisters and brothers. "Family," she announced, climbing onto a chair to get everyone's attention. "I have something important to say." Everyone stopped eating and looked at her expectantly. "From today on, I won't have visions about bad things that might happen anymore," she said solemnly. "My gift has changed." "Changed how?" Evelyn asked. Hope smiled, that radiant smile that had won everyone over since the first day. "Now, I'm only going to see good things that will happen. Because our family has already been through all the hard things it needed to. From now on, only happiness is coming." And so, on a sunny morning in Oakhaven, surrounded by a family that chose to love her unconditionally and that she helped form through her courage and wisdom, Hope Montgomery completed her mission of transforming pain into love, losses into gains, and strangers into family. Her story became a legend in the town, not as the girl who saw tragedies, but as the child who taught an entire family that true love always finds a way to multiply, transform, and heal. If you like this video, please subscribe to my channel. I promise to bring videos every day that will make your life happier. Comment what you thought of my story with a rating from 0 to 10, and thank you very much.